Hey, hi guys.
Hi, sir.
I'm happy you're all here. I just wanted to make like this like a roundtable discussion I have. I generally love to have this every budget day. I think last few years the budget is being presented on Feb 1st. Earlier it used to be Feb 28th, end of the month. I'm happy it's being done now on February 1st. Yesterday many people were unhappy because the budget came on a Sunday. This I think budget is going to come back on a Sunday again in 2032. And by that time I think you guys will be completing your studies, you'll be doing your job and stuff, so I think you'll remember this day then. So I'll be happy to kind of let's discuss few things about what happened in the budget yesterday. Right, okay, over to you.
So, what is fiscal deficit and how does it affect the economy?
Yeah, I think fiscal deficit is very similar to gap between your income and expenses. For example, it could be an individual who's earning salary, but his or her expenses are more than the expenses are more than income. The difference becomes deficit. Right? Fiscal deficit is exactly that. In the context of a country, in the context of a government, they call it fiscal deficit. The word fiscal deficit, a lot of words, gross deficit, net deficit, but the broad idea is what is the income that the government is actually having, and whatever the expenses outlays they have for various activities during the year, the difference between that is fiscal deficit. And this year, the fiscal deficit of government of India is going to be around 17 lakh crores. Around 17 lakh crores. The budget of India, the outlays that the government of India has around, exact numbers you can find, but I'm just giving you a broad context. Around 54 lakh crores is what the government of India has. You know the exact number more than me, I'm assuming. What is the number? Idea, what is the budget, total budgeted figure of government of India? Around that 54 lakh crores is the budgeted amount. Whereas the receipts of the government of India are only 37 lakhs. So that difference of 17 lakhs is fiscal deficit. Now coming to, is it good? For a thing, it's at an individual level. Having deficit is not a great thing, right? You should not have loans. You should not keep having more expenses than what your income is. They say live within the means. But please understand, even if it's an individual or a family, what is the deficit about? That's what is more important. If you take a loan, is taking a loan bad? No. But taking a loan for what? If you take a loan because I want to have a party, if you take a loan because I want to have a vacation, that's not great. But if you take a loan because you're building a house, if you take a loan because you are buying an asset, if you take a loan because you're starting a business, it's a good thing, isn't it? You're building some productive asset. Exactly same with the country. So Gitika, when the government is actually taking a loan to kind of do something for the increasing the assets of the country, increasing capital allocation, that's good. At this time, the good thing is most of the deficit is actually towards capital allocation, which is a positive thing. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question. Yes.
Sir, recent rupee depreciation lead to expensive foreign education, and finance minister introduced some tax exemption for the students working in foreign countries. So, how is this budget going to affect the students studying in foreign nations?
No, I think you got the first part right, Tej, but the second part is not completely right. It's not tax exemption, but I'll explain that. So I think you're right. Rupee depreciating is a problem for anyone who is trying to buy things from abroad. It's like imports, right? When you study abroad, when you go and study abroad, it's very much like an import. You're studying there, you have to pay in dollars, but your income is in rupees. Currently, India is the only major currency which is still depreciating against dollar. Every other major currency is actually appreciating against dollar. Dollar is currently in the last 1 year or so. Dollar is actually in a downward spiral. Dollar itself is depreciating. There's something called dollar index. Dollar index is dollar's value against a basket of currencies like euro, etc., etc. I think the only major currency still depreciating against US dollar is Indian rupee. In fact, some people joke that even Pakistani rupiah, Bangladesh, etc., also are doing better than India at this point of time compared to US dollar. Now, please understand, while this is a problem, this is happening for a particular reason. We need to understand that. Why is this happening? Because we don't have a trade deal yet with US. In a way, our tariffs are very high, and maybe government feels if we want to be competitive with Bangladesh and India compete. When it comes to, we don't compete with them on many things, but the one thing that we compete at, they're actually equally good like India, is textiles. When we do textile exports to countries like US and Europe, Bangladesh actually they have a better tariff and stuff. So what happens is when we have same expenses, they can actually sell it at a lower price. It affects us. So this devaluing your own currency is one way. China, Japan have done a lot. That's why Trump keeps talking about China and Japan have actually always devalued their currency to make their exports better and stuff. India, I don't think while we're doing it wantedly, I think, but at this point of time, we are having a situation where our outflows every month are very high. Capital outflows, as we call people who invest in Indian stock markets and things like that. There's a lot of capital outflow. Last 2 years to be exact. I think the amount of money that's being taken out of Indian stock markets, people, foreign investors, that's very huge. They're not net investments are less. They're all out. They're taking away money. So that's one big reason why US dollar is actually appreciating or rupee is depreciating. That definitely increases the cost for Indians studying abroad or Indians importing anything. But I believe it is not a structural long-term phenomena. It will be a few-year phenomena. I think once the US trade deal is done and whenever we have our stock markets become attractive enough for foreign investors to stay back or keep investing, this will automatically change. But right now, this is a problem. This is the answer for that. Now, stock markets are not. I mean, yesterday, I don't know if we'll discuss about that more, but equally, the second thing you said, taxes thing, right? There's a difference between tax and TCS. I'm assuming you're talking about the TCS, right? TCS being collected. Government of India has something called TCS, tax collected at source. That is, whenever you're expending something, whenever you are going abroad for a vacation, going abroad and studying, etc. Whenever you are paying someone in a foreign country, there's a rule that government of India says you have to pay some part of it has tax collected at source. You have to pay that. That is a TCS part. It happens through a travel agency. For example, you are doing a Europe vacation or a Singapore vacation. You book it through a travel agency. They have to do that. It's called TCS, tax collected at source. Now in that, earlier it was 5%. Now they brought it down to 2%. It is not a tax per se. It is basically, again, I'm telling you, government of India cannot levy a tax on expenses you make abroad. They can only do something called TCS. TCS is tax, just like TDS, tax deducted at source, tax collected at source. Deducted means the income on income. Collected is on the expense. When you're expending, they're collecting. When you're getting income, for example, you get salary tomorrow. After your graduation, you get a pay, and your company is deducting some part of your salary and paying to the government on behalf of you. That is TDS. Here, when you're expending something, when you're making an expense, the people with whom you're expending your money, in this case a travel agency or someone, you have to go on vacation, they have to collect it and put it to government. That is called TCS. So it's not really a tax, it's more like the amount collected on your behalf and reported to government. TDS and TCS are basically done for two reasons. Number one, it is done to ensure that tax evasion is not there. For example, a person is doing high value transactions in foreign countries. Government wants to know because they want to know if the person is actually paying income tax or not. If the person is actually tax evasion ho raha hai or tax is like being paid properly. The same thing with TDS. If a person, the TDS and TCS are not really taxes. They are actually some amounts collected from you on behalf of you but paid to government through service providers, through people who give you income, through people who take expenses from you. That's what it is. Am I clear? So it is definitely relief for anyone who wants to go abroad on a vacation, who wants to go abroad and study, who wants to do anything abroad. I think any services they take, right now it is not 5%, just 2%. That's definitely a huge benefit. Yes.
So, why was there no major direct tax relaxation?
See, I think, in fact, I'm one of those, I would say, every adult. I think you have some more time before you can talk about that, but every adult yesterday would have waited, with breath hold, like will Nirmala Sitharamanji give some kind of tax break, etc. I think this year, there's not too much that the government could actually do anything on the direct taxes. Direct taxes, they've done last year, they've given tax exemption or tax rebate, tax this thing up to 12 lakhs. Something happened major last year, I think, which was 2.5-3 lakhs some years back. It was made to 12 lakhs. I don't think they really have a lot of wiggle room left. Probably we'll have to wait for a couple of more seasons for any new thing to happen on direct tax. Even on indirect taxes, you're only asking direct taxes, but even on indirect taxes, they did not provide any relief for say, right? Indirect taxes also, I think, slowly the government of India started making decisions about direct taxes, indirect taxes, anything that citizens of the country will be affected. They're not only waiting for budget day to make those decisions. For example, indirect taxes in the country are all about GST. And we have a GST commission in India. So GST commission makes those decisions. They're not going to wait for the next budget. I think GST recently during Diwali time, we had a GST reduction a few months back, right? So huge clubbing and changing and simplifying the GST structure. I think so direct taxes and indirect taxes, I believe, sometimes it's also about how frequent. They cannot do it every this thing. I think earlier what happened was because the government was trying to increase it. I mean, increase the tax slab. I think zero tax slab, rebate slab to this thing. And last year they've come to a good size. They probably feel there's no need to do anything more on that. Yes, but a lot of people were not so happy. But having said that, I would believe this year, I think the budget was talking more about continuity. The budget was talking about how to. It was more about forward-looking budget than today's making people happy budget. Actually.
Sir, why are foreign investors pulling out from our stock markets, and how did the budget introduced address this?
No, I think, in fact, if you the question that you asked, Kartika would want to say whatever budget did yesterday made it worse. Okay, on this account. I think why foreign investors are pulling out of Indian markets for the last couple of years. I think the reason is extremely simple. The reason is that Indian stock markets are one of the most richly valued stock markets in the world. What I mean is, the PE ratio, price to earnings ratio. That is the every share in India is much more richly valued, and the price of Indian shares are much higher than contemporary other shares. A company earning similar kind of profit, similar kind of earnings, say in a similar country, South Korea, or China, Japan. I think our shares are much highly valued. We are valued at 30x P's or 30x, 20x, etc. Overall, our market is highly valued as compared to some of those other countries. Maybe because traditionally also we've had that higher valuation. Maybe because of being a democratic country. Because a lot of these things, why investors generally valued India has always got one beautiful thing about Indian stock market is we got richer valuations, we got better valuations than our other emerging nations. That's positive in the last couple of decades. Now, what happened in the last few years is stock markets in India still richly valued, but they feel that there's much better opportunity for us to earn money. People put money because they want to earn returns, right? Now, an American citizen or American FPI investor who wants to invest in emerging countries, say if they have to invest in India, they have to find it attractive as compared to what their situation is. There were times few years back in US the rate of return was very low, right? US rate of return was very low, and they found it the difference between the amount of money they make on Indian stock and what they can make as a return in their own country, the difference was high enough for them to say, let me invest in India. Last couple of years, US Fed Reserve, their own rates have gone up. Now the rate of return they get in US, and they have a lot of other, because of things that they are doing currently, their stock markets are getting a lot of returns now. They feel it's much more easier for us to earn return in our own country than go outside. That's the difference in the return they get from India and US. The difference is not enough for them to come to India. And the second thing is currency is it's a double whammy. The currency is depreciating. Even if they earn 10% return or 15% return on stock market in India, our currency is also getting devalued by 5 to 7% every year right now. So the actual return is only less than 7%. This instead of taking that, they'll do it in their own country. So this is a double whammy. Now coming to yesterday's budget really did not do anything to make that. Frankly speaking, I believe government cannot do anything about it. Right? It has to be about, I think, how can this change? Let's understand how will this change. This will change only when two things happen. Number one is when our companies start showing better profits. When every quarter on quarter, when results come, when the companies, all our companies, they give better return, their earnings are better, their margins are better. They have to grow and show that we are earning better. That's one. I hope that will happen. In fact, it is expected to happen this quarter. But because we have a labor code thing and things like that, but I hope in a couple of quarters from now, I think Indian stock markets will have better earnings than what it was there for last couple. That will change. Number two, when this happens, number two is also connected to this. Number two is automatically what happens, they stop pulling out a lot of money. It's not that they invest, but they stop pulling out. The moment foreign investors, they don't really buy anymore, but even they stop selling. I think stock markets will rise. They'll stop selling. Dollar versus Indian rupee will also appreciate better. Automatically, the returns feel better. Then they start coming back. So it is a cycle of they're selling a lot now. Next step is not about buying anymore. They stop selling. They stop selling for a few months. Then rupee appreciates, and then the next cycle of buying will come. So it's a natural process. Yes.
So why should dividend income be exempted from taxes?
No, I think dividend income is not exempt from taxes. I think I want to clarify that. Yesterday's budget talk about buyback. I think what happened was the two ways in which a company can give money back to its owners, right? Shareholders. If you own the share of any company, Reliance, TCS, any company, they can give you money. They can give you money to you as a owner of the company in two forms. One is dividend and the other is buyback. A dividend is basically a percentage amount of profit that they earned in that year, in that quarter, in that year. They're giving you, we have earned this money. We don't have any use for that in the company. We don't need to use that for company needs. We're giving it back to you as owner of the company. Very much like interest on a fixed deposit or interest on loan. That is dividend income. The other income that you can also get is buyback. So a company says, we have a lot of cash in our books, we have a lot of cash in the bank accounts, but we don't really know how to use that. We don't have a plan we don't have a new plant put up, we don't have a new office put up, we are not growing, we don't have any need for that. What can they do? One thing is they go and put it in FD, fixed deposit themselves, right? And why would a company have to do FD? You can yourself do it as shareholder, right? So that's why they say they do the second concept called buyback. What they're saying is they're trying to buy back the shares of their own company. For example, there are 100 shares of that company floating in the market. When the company has money, slowly and slowly what the company does is that the company tries to buy the shares back from the shareholders. That means from 100, there are only 90 shares left of the company available in the market. The 10 people are able to sell their shares back to the company and get good money for that. And what happened? The share value will increase. Share value will increase because now only 90 shares are available. The value of the share will increase. That's what is buyback. So before this budget, yesterday's announcement by Nirmala Sitharamanji, what happened was the taxing of this income that is given to shareholder is different for dividend, different for buyback. For dividends, what happened was taxing was happening on the individual level. That means you get a dividend, you pay the taxes. You pay the taxes on your level of income, on your tax slab, on your slab, whatever it is. But buybacks were taxed on the company level. So even before, for example, there's a company that you have, 5 of you have shares of that company, the company has to pay the tax first to the government and then pay the buyback thing. That was considered an anomaly because dividend and buyback has to be treated on par. Most of the advanced economies, all the economies treat them equally. Earlier there's a difference. Because of which what happened, companies were not preferring to do buybacks. Companies were only giving dividends, or companies were otherwise holding the money back idly because the taxation on the company was higher. So now what happened, they said, okay, buybacks are also going to be treated very much like a dividend. So it is your income, the income you get based on your tax slab, you will pay the taxes. So that now companies will be having the freedom. They can either give a dividend or do a buyback. So that process will make it easy. That is one positive from yesterday's budget. Yes.
Sir, why provide a 41 share to the states when they have their own sources of revenue?
Now, 41% devolution, and in fact, Geetika, for the question you asked, there are a lot of states which believe that 41% also is very less. It should be more. Now, before 10 years, it was only 30%. Now it is 41. Logically speaking, at the end of the day, we are a union of states. We are a country. But there are some parts of government that the state can tax on, some parts that only union government taxes. State government does have its own resources, but the goal is to try and make it easy for citizens that there is unified tax regime across the country. The moment you do that, that is where GST has come in. Before GST existed, states used to have their own sales tax. So every state has its own tax regime, indirect tax regime. For example, on a particular product, the amount of sales tax that is there in Andhra Pradesh is different from Telangana, Telangana different from Tamil Nadu, and so on and so on. But GST, when it was introduced, the goal was to say across the country, same tax. Now, when the central government is taking the tax, it will automatically become the responsibility. Today, whatever central government is collecting, all the taxes were never only central governments. The state government powers also are usurped by them. So GST is a common thing. There's a CGST, SGST, etc. So central government says, okay, we will kind of devolve some of the money we collect to the states. They have to be given to the states. So at the end of the day, central government, when they're collecting money, they're not only collecting for their functions. Right? A central government does have unilateral responsibility with respect to 3 or 4 key domains of the country, but not others. For example, defense, defending the country, foreign affairs. Some of these things, it's only central government that's doing. But everything else, states are involved in taking care of that. If you have to do welfare schemes, central government alone cannot do. A state and central government together will do. So in that context, that devolving of funds is very important. And in fact, there's a schools of thought that say the devolving of funds to state government have to be a lot more. In fact, it's better than what it was 10 years back. Today it's 40%, earlier it was 30. I think, but that will emerge more and more, and it will stabilize somewhere. That's very important. I think devolving funds should not only from center to state, but even from state to Jilla Parishad and Panchayat. The more funds go to lowest level, I think the better it is. Only thing was, we had a situation where, I don't know, earlier one of the prime ministers said, only 15 paisa of 100 paisa are actually going to the people. 85 paisa is in corruption. That was a situation some 20-30 years back. But things are slowly changing. I think we have better technology, we have have better, you can connect everything to Aadhaar and things like that. I think when that comes down, I think slowly already central and state governments both are empowering panchayats, empowering Jilla Parishads to have their own, they are able to, they are devolving funds there and they are doing that. That's going to be the future. Yeah.
So, Finance Minister announced a tax holiday for data centers, which going to result in increase of data centers across India. But during it's going to increase employment in long run, and how it's going to affect on our environment, as we saw in developed nations like US, it has adverse effect on their economy.
No, I think the first thing I want to say is this is something that yesterday's budget speech, many people got it wrong. They did not, they actually announced a tax holiday till 2047. But please understand, it's not on every data center. I think the first mistake is it's not for establishing data centers. It's about, see, a lot of times what happens is, for example, if we have to start a data center in India today, a lot of the things that have to be done with data center, we need a foreign intermediary. There's a foreign people who have to provide the service. They don't completely things are there, right? They're basically saying a foreign entity has to provide. India at the end of the day wants foreign countries to hold their Indian data here. We would not be happy to take our data back to US data center or Chinese data center. We want the data centers to be in India. So in the context of that, if they have to allow foreign entities to kind of have data centers, hold the data clouds here, they're basically saying, hey, you hold any data that you have to hold here, we will not tax you on that. It's foreign people serving. It's also about people who are serving foreign countries also. While the service is not for, if for example, if we don't do this, what happens is other countries give chance for people to hold data centers and data clouds, etc. without tax. They would rather serve India and other foreign countries also by having a free tax regime in somewhere else. The government of India is basically saying, hey, you want to support, you want to do foreign export of your data center clouds and stuff, we'll give you tax-free regime in India. But the condition is they also have to serve Indians. There's a condition in that if you only serve outside, a lot do. You'll have to serve Indian clients also. They have created a condition with through an Indian stick. So please understand, it's not a new data center anyone establishes. It's not like that. So there's a rule for that. Am I clear? So it is more towards that. I agree with your environment part, right? Environment. I think environment also, there's a Trumpian school of thought which says it's all hogwash. This environment is good, as good, and there's an Al Gore school of thought which says everything is doomsday sky. I believe the reality is, I don't think we can ascribe to either views, right? We cannot say whatever we do, environment is always good. Don't worry about it. That's a very bad thought. Similarly, to kind of say that we cannot grow, it's very similar to saying, hey, let's not do any industry, any this thing because the state has a problem that there'll not be growth, there'll not be jobs, etc. So I think it's a balanced thing that we need to do. I think the future would be about future environment would be about trying to build more solutions which are environment friendly. I think that is a future where people are already talking about having data centers in cloud. Not real cloud, not the virtual cloud, but you actually put data centers out in the space. That's what I mean. People are saying, let's not hold data centers on Earth anymore. Instead of destroying the environment ecology of this thing, let's put data centers in the space. And space has sunlight, abundant sunlight, solar energy and stuff. People are working on that. Elon Musk is working, a lot of large corporates are working. They expect 2027, Jeff Bezos is trying to put first such thing in 2027. If they are successful, future will be about putting all data centers in the space than on Earth. That will be a fun thing, yes.
Sir, is allocation of the budget really necessary for our neighbors?
So I think I know this is yesterday. I think you would have seen some countries have increased the budget, some countries the budget is decreased. But do understand at the end of the day, we as a largest country in the neighborhood, it is definitely our responsibility to take care of the countries around us. Because when our neighbors are our security, our neighbors are our insurance, right? We cannot have a neighbor country which is not having good relation with us, it affects our security. So whether it's Myanmar, or whether it's Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Maldives, all these countries that we are supporting, I think it makes sense for us as a country because we need to have better neighbors, friendly neighbors, etc. Having said that, if you see the funds that are given, you see the friendly countries were getting more funds than last year. Bangladesh got 50% reduced. Last year it was 120 crores, this year it's only 60 crores. That's also happening. So it depends on that kind of situation. I would say it is important. In fact, till few decades or some time back, India was getting funds from Europe and other countries. Some of the UK, I think last year there was a huge discussion around why is India still getting some $3 billion, etc. as developing fund, etc. I think as we grow, as we are developing, we don't need them anymore. India also said we don't need that anymore. But I think when you are fortunate, say the two siblings, one of them is more fortunate and the other one is not. The more fortunate sibling should help the unfortunate or underfortunate sibling. That's okay. As long as they have good relation. You cannot support a sibling of yours who is not being friendly with you, who is not cooperating with you. That's exactly what it's all about.
Sir, do you think international tensions this year affected our budget?
I think couple of things. I would definitely say so. I would definitely. I think the focus was. If you see this year's budget was not taken well by stock markets. This year's budget was not a big bang budget in the sense that last year it was about reducing the direct tax up to 12 lakhs and stuff. A lot of these things were there. This year it was more about trying to kind of how do we ensure whatever they did. The focus was more on fiscal deficit control, capital expenditure. All these things were to say let's not hope the world will be stable. World will have a lot of shaky things. Let's build our GDP resilient to that. That's one change, right? Otherwise, they could have gone for a flashy lot of these things. Second thing, if you see, is you also have to understand because the tariffs, etc., tariff wars, etc., are happening. These things also, in fact, the question that she asked just now, right? You just said about, for example, Iran's Chabahar port. We had a lot of funding last year. This time we have no funding. We are recognizing the impact of geopolitical tensions because Iran is currently sanctioned by USA. We don't want to get into that kind of places. We don't want to invest. We don't want to build assets in those countries which are not safe anymore. Which are not. So these are things. I think those kind of stuff are definitely there. Budget is definitely impacted by that, and we have to be mindful of that. Today we are not world's major power. Okay, please understand we are an aspiring major power. But if we have to talk about world's major powers, currently it is US and China. And there's some other powers like Russia. Russia can be considered a major power when it comes to military. But economically, even Russia is not a major power. But economically and stuff, economically, US is a great power. China is a great major power. US has both military and economy. China has economy and military is not so well tested. Russia is a military power. India is a middling power. Middle as in we are emerging power, but we're still not at that level. So we will, once we get to a state where we really need not worry about what other country can affect us. Other country cannot sanction us. That's size we need to go to. Till that time we should be mindful and practical about it.
So yesterday our finance minister has proposed to establish a institution for design East India. So my question is why only in East India, why not in other regions of our country?
No, I think this is, I would say you should be happy about wherever they're establishing, right? So I want to tell you, first of all, please understand, do you know that there are 7 NIDs already? There are 7 NIDs existing in India already. And one of them is in Andhra Pradesh. But I'm saying NITs, IITs, NIDs, NLUs, IIMs and stuff. The more and more they're getting established, they're trying to establish in every place. So it's not that this is not the first NID ever. The first NID is in Ahmedabad, then we have Bangalore, we have Amravati, a lot of places are there. So this is not the first NID. There's 7 already. 8th one is being established next. Definitely, I mean, this is an academic setting, but I would say yes, government will probably do something which are people believe like electoral bound, election bound states also. But it has to be a mix of that. East India also deserves that. So having an NID is not, if there's an NID needed in a different part of the country, let's talk about that. But let's not worry about East having it. Right? Yeah, I think it's important. I don't know if you've heard, you spoke about NID, but I was more excited about something else more than an NID. It's a very beautiful concept that government of India is doing this time. People are saying we are creating a animation video AVGC centers, right? Capability centers to be built in 15,000 schools and 5,000 colleges across India through Mumbai-based Indian Institute of Creative Arts Center. I think that's a very more exciting thing. I would love to have a Gyanville or any school in Hyderabad, multiple schools in Hyderabad to have that because that is, we're basically saying let's not work towards only one career anymore. Let's kind of upskill people. So NEP also talks about that. So people at your age 9, 10, 11, 12, if animation is a big industry now. With AI, animation is going to become much bigger. So if animation can be made, it can give millions of jobs. So I think that's one of the exciting projects that's shaping up.
So, what areas were left out in this year's budget and why?
I think if you ask me personally, I would say one, I can talk about many, but I would not want to rant. Like I said, I never like to be a victim. But one different thing I think we could do better is, I would love to see India emerge as an R&D hub. If we really want to do big things, we need to do more R&D. I think R&D at this point of time in our budgets, etc., finds a very small mention. It's not that it's zero, but the impetus that has to be given to R&D has to be much higher. For example, if government of India can encourage private sector and institutions, etc., to do patents, R&Ds at such a level that with a lot of benefits, tax benefits and stuff, I would think that would make a huge difference to R&D spend of the country, number of patents filed, and because when we do actual innovation, automatically manufacturing, etc., will do well. I think that's one area I would believe I would have loved to, as an academician, as an education leader myself, I would love to see that more.
So, how is this budget aligned with Vikasit Bharat 2047?
I think Vikasit Bharat 2047 is a longer term vision statement out there. I think when we talk about tax holiday till that 2047 to data centers, etc. I think while 2047 is a larger goal to have, every budget has to talk about today's world. It's very much like, budget is a statement that is being made today, but for future plans. So in that way, every 2026, 27, every budget that we make is going to take us one step forward to that. And there are a lot of statements that were made in that. For example, there are a lot of funds that were created, 10,000 crore funds for women entrepreneurs, 10,000 crore funds for, these spoken pharma hubs. A lot of these things are there that are going to take us there, but not directly 24/7 target, but every year something has to be done. Yeah, I would say that, yes.
So in the yesterday union budget session, our finance minister also talked about and proposed about focusing on infrastructure of the country, mainly the railway and the inland waterways. So does projects like high-speed railways are important for India?
I think, yeah, this is politically people will have different thoughts, but I believe absolutely it's important for a country like India, because what happens is people, when metro started first time in India, or metro started in some towns or some cities, people felt, why is it needed? Please understand, India is such a large and growing country. Our population, our needs are growing so much, we are getting urbanized. On one side, we don't want to be urbanized, but please understand, India will keep urbanizing more and more and more, because for us to provide jobs, to provide growth, to provide security to all the people, we cannot have it there. So in that context, when that happens, you need to have public transport modes and stuff should be a lot more available, right? And that's why, more airports. That's why high-speed trains that can help. See, Chennai, Bangalore, out of the 7 high-speed rail corridors they spoke about, 3 of them are between Chennai, Bangalore and Hyderabad each. They're basically saying that travel between these 2 cities will come down to 1.5 to us. That's a huge deal, right? Something people would stop taking flights and take here. Probably, that will help a lot, right? So these are, even if assuming some people want to go by flight, some people want to go by train, these days airports are there. There's a joke for me and my friends in Bangalore. We have this joke that the amount of time actually we take to travel to Hyderabad to Bangalore on flight is very less. But from here to airport in Hyderabad and airport in Bangalore to the place is much higher. So things we need more when probably high-speed rails come, probably that can shape up. So these are absolutely must. A lot of times, development at the end of the day, there's nothing called overdevelopment. We cannot say, hey, you're developing more than needed. No, it is not there. What is the only thing we can do is, can we develop while we are sustained? Can we develop in such a way that we're trying to provide for everyone? That much is taken care of. But India as a country needs a lot more than what we have. Right? Probably there are very few countries which can say they have developed so much and they're getting wasted. Yes, for example, China people, there's some research that says China has developed real estate much more than necessary. But I would say China today, look at what kind of growth they have. Right? It depends. So I would say absolutely necessary. High-speed rail corridors.
Sir, some states think that they are not treated equally compared to other states. What do you think about that?
I think, please understand, there are 2 sides of this thing, right? Some states believe that they're giving more, we are more urbanized, we spend, our people are more rich, we have a better economy, we have better per capita GDP, we spend more, but we get less from center, right? But please understand, at the end of the day, center is like that parent, right? Parent cannot say, hey, this child is paying more, let me give more pocket money. This is not going to happen. At the end of the day, South Indian states traditionally were more developed. For example, out of the 7 corridors, out of the 7 high-speed corridors that are being planned, 3 of them are only planned in 3 South Indian cities, among within them. And in fact, 1 more is there from Hyderabad to some other place. No one is complaining about that. Across India, out of all the states, only 3. So please understand, I think, while there is a merit to saying, hey, we do more, we need more, but to say that other states are getting benefit over at our expense is not fair, because every state, you have to kind of think of how can we do it better. For example, devolution mechanism is based on various parameters. Right? State, 41% of the money that's going to states, it is based on many parameters. For example, population of the state, how much forestation they can get, a lot of parameters are there. The goal is For example, Karnataka, Telangana, these people can go to center and say, let's build the algorithm better. I think we're being unfairly treated because the population is less. Think of those kind of stuff. But to say that we are a rich state, we should get more money back is unfair. We should always take care of our, like I said, unfortunate neighbors, our own siblings, these are within the country. Because you never know. For example, today, a state that is underdeveloped today, but actually become the growth engine for tomorrow. Right?
So yesterday, many opposition leaders have passed statements that this year budget has ignored the youth unemployment. So what do you think? So?
No, I think at the end of the day, not only this year budget, every year budget, there are 2-3 things that will always be a problem forever, right? Unemployment, inflation. There are few problems that are going to stay forever. That are, I mean, you ask any election, any situation, they'll ask. But the goal, I think, while the government has to attack it head on, right? There are a lot of ideas. For example, what governments recently have done is they're trying to formalize the economy more. That is, otherwise, the jobs in the country were only talked about. People said I had a job only if they had a government job. Even if they had a private job, they never felt it was secure or this thing. With the labor codes happening now, with everyone getting a PF account and stuff like that, I think they are formalizing the private sector, which is a much better job security for gig economy, people who are gig workers and stuff. I think these are steps in the right direction. But like I said, like earlier, your friend asked, Gitika asked, what can have been done more? I said R&D should have been more. I think, but similarly, opposition feels there could be more impetus on job creation. I agree, but there's no end to it. It could be better any days. Okay. Done? Yeah. Okay. So I think I loved interacting with you all. I hope you enjoyed talking with me, and this is a beautiful roundtable. I want to kind of tell you that this is a great step you guys have taken towards analyzing the budget. So whenever a budget is presented, never see the budget as a pure number thing. Like I said, it's about conceptual understanding of where it's going. Right. For example, this year budget in India. If I ask you now that we discussed so much, if I ask you a question like, was it a growth-oriented budget or was it welfare budget? For what do you say this year? This year, the budget, 2026-27 budget that was presented yesterday, is it a growth-oriented budget or welfare budget, taking care of people budget? What would you say? I'm asking the question back to you.
So it is more like mid.
More like?
In middle.
Somewhere in between. I would say actually if you go back and look at the last few years, I think it's very clearly growth oriented budget. Like you said, we did not speak about DTC, no direct tax benefits. The welfare benefits were not increased this year. Right? The focus was so much more on capital intensive projects, high speed rail corridors and all that stuff. This year definitely it's a growth or asset creation budget. See, every time an economy is, you're all economic students, so GDP has to increase, GDP can increase, the formula for GDP. What is the formula for GDP? The formula for GDP, expenditures, right? All this, part of that is either through consumption or investment, right? Expenditure or investment. So there are times when the government might say, let's focus on increasing the GDP, growing the GDP of the country through the expenses, through the consumption of the economy, consumption of the population. Or sometimes we do it through investment by building assets. So last year, for example, was a consumption oriented this thing. This year it was more about the asset oriented, capex oriented budget. Yeah. So with this, let's come to the conclusion. Loved interacting with you all. Would love to talk more and let's keep debating and discussing. All the best.
Thank you.